Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal stories, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. In the ever-evolving tapestry of technology and human experience, where the digital realm intertwines with the tangible threads of our daily lives, there's one platform that stands at the crossroads of innovation and personal growth. Welcome to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that people will follow. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, broadcasting from the vibrant pulse of South Florida. I am here to connect the dots between the rich wisdom of the past and the uncharted territories of technological advancement. Today's episode is nothing short of extraordinary, as we welcome a visionary, a pioneer at the forefront of the digital revolution, Rob Petrosino. Rob's journey is a beacon of innovation, from the intricate circuits of artificial intelligence to the immersive realms of mixed reality. His path is marked by relentless curiosity and a deep-seated belief in the transformative power of technology. Rob's dedication to demystifying the complex and making the future accessible reflects a commitment that extends beyond the code. It's about shaping a world where technology enhances human connection. In our conversation today, we will navigate the labyrinth of tech's latest frontier, from the ethereal wonders of AI to the tangible impact of mixed reality on our everyday lives. We will dissect the layers of digital evolution and uncover how these tools can forge stronger bonds within our communities. But this dialogue is more than just a retrospective glance at the milestones of tech. It's a forward-thinking exploration of where we are headed. Together, Rob and I will delve into the heart of innovation, examining how the seeds of today's technology can blossom into the solutions of tomorrow. Join us on this enlightening journey with Rob Petrosino as we remind ourselves that the realm of technology is not just about gadgets and algorithms. It's about empowering each individual to lead, to grow, and to make a lasting impact. This is the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Follow the Brand podcast. This is Grant McGaugh. We're getting close, very close to the new year. By the time you actually listen to this, we will have stepped over into 2024, right? Big number. I remember me as a child back in the dark worlds of the 1970s and 1980s. 2024, like we're going to be flying, or we're going to have the levitating cars, the Jetson, a thing? Is Star Wars really happening? Have we gotten into human intelligence somewhere else, or some kind of alien intelligence in another world? Where are we? Well, we're in 2024, and I'm going to talk to somebody who's on the emerging. When it comes to technology and what's really happening in the space and where we're at and where we are headed, I turn to Rob because Rob has always been on the leading edge of new tech, not just talking about it, but living it. I like his living reality when it comes down to technology. So, Rob, without me keep going on and on and on, introduce yourself.
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me. Always love our conversation. So when you were like, hey, I want you to come on, I was like, I'm in, whatever, let's do it. So I'm glad we got it scheduled. But so my background is a super unique one. As of today, right, my role and intent and purpose is to help people understand emerging technology. Now, the great part about emerging technology is that it's always emerging. Right. So there's always something new that I get to talk about, which we kind of chatted about in person before. Realistically, the two key areas that I'm focused on are all things artificial intelligence. Okay, so we're going to have to unpack that. That's a big old bucket of water, and we're going to have to separate molecules. And then everything related to what I call like the mixed reality spectrum, right? So that's from phones to head-mounted displays and all this other stuff. That's really what my focus on, and I have a pretty long history of doing that for the last 5+ years now.
Wow, 5+ years, man. Think about that. 5+ years, 2019, pre-COVID. What was hot? I think what was hot right then, 2019, is I think about tech. Everybody's, definitely into cloud computing, what that's going to be like. Hey, if we're going to move things in the cloud, we're going to do private cloud. What is that? That's an infrastructure play. What were we doing in software? We were just playing around again with, some 2D stuff that was happening. 3D metaverse stuff had always been around. We're starting to really touch into blockchain. I remember talking to John Riley in 2019, blockchain. Well, what's that all about, right? Where's that going to take us as a community? And is it really going to, help us in a finance perspective? Look at where we've come now. I mean, we're all over the place. And but I remember this trend. I remember it vividly, especially in the internet bubble, the boom and the bust. There's a lot of just new technology, a lot of investment dollars going in and out. People trying to find that new, like Microsoft play. Everybody's looking for the new platform. OpenAI has just opened everything up and has given us what the possibilities that we did not have before. I think people need to realize one thing before. Because of cloud computing, which unified a lot of compute and storage on a worldwide level, and then also with the COVID happening, it showed us that we could support a global community. Okay, that's a big wow moment because that's never happened before. And you're always in the speculation and whatnot, but can you really do it? Well, you got to have a real working workload. Well, we had a real working workload. Now we started to play with it. Talk to me about your journey over the last 4 or 5 years and how you've seen these wild moments take place.
Yeah, so it's crazy. Okay, so the big break for me was about mid-2018. Okay, mid-2018, what happens? Well, Magic Leap 1 releases its first production headset. Okay, you're talking about radically game changing. This is not Ronnie? Who's Ronnie, the former CEO of Met? What is he do? He's got whales jumping and landing in gymnasia. No one understood. No one had any idea. Okay. So mid 2018, you have Magic Leap 1 come out, and I am fascinated. This thing is insane, right? I got to try it out early on in the production launch, and then got to understand a lot of the technology behind it and what that meant. And realistically, right, artificial intelligence has been around for decades, right? It had a different term. They call it machine learning. They call it algorithmic machine learning, and all this other fun stuff, right? But when we started seeing some of this crossover, right, it really kind of manifested itself when someone was sticking an ML1 on their head, and the Magic Leap 1 could detect what a wall was. That's machine learning, Could detect what a floor was, that's machine learning. Could understand depth and distance and all these other things. You're starting to see machine learning and artificial intelligence blend over each other. Now, people are going to come on in the comments and be like, well, you had personalized recommendations in Amazon at that time and e-commerce suggestions of what you should also purchase. All true. All real things. They all existed. I think the first manifestation for myself, though, was when I could put on a headset and see things that were not really in front of me. And that's where things kind of like blew drastically apart. And I went, okay, I got a glimpse in the future early. And I've been actively following that chain as it moves forward.
Wow, man, that had to be a mind-blowing moment. It's like you're in the movie. That's what I got out of it. It's like, everybody's gone to a 3D movie, right? You go to a Marvel flick, you're like, man, what would it be like to be Iron Man? Be an Iron Man suit, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was on the tail end, right? So in 2016, Pokemon Go came out, okay? But everyone's running around with the cell phone. I gotta catch some Pokemon, right? People were running, going into like disparate parts of towns, right? And like hanging out on railroad tracks because Pokemon would show up. But it was still on this, right? Which was fine. Yeah. It made a lot of sense for it to be here. But when you started putting that device on your face and going, oh, now it's just different. And it was an evolution beyond what Google Glass was prior to that. So yeah, I think that that adoption started happening and the snowball started to roll, where some people were early, some people were a little late, but that adoption, right, becomes lower and lower. To your point, OpenAI, there's no barrier. If I have internet connection and a keyboard, which is everywhere, right, for the most part, you can use it. And it's going to give you something. So that adoption is going to just skyrocket, which is what it did.
Well, when I first was looking into just Web 3.0, what's 3.0? What is that? What's Web 4.0? And all these different things. And I started to get into it, and I started to really notice what could possibly be like reimagining our communication platform that we call the internet and making it more interactive. And that is what was intriguing. Now, I'm going to sit there and say, you've probably seen this. The first reiterations or manifestations of this ultra reality, this merging of digital world and physical world into one unified platform, which had been termed metaverse, which I know you hate that term. Like, stop it, right? But it's our first time. I mean, when we first talked about the internet, I think they call it the information highway. So just understand, we're going to go through some changes because we're morphing, we're evolving, we're starting to test this thing out. Where is this going to go? And can we really do it at a high level of adoption? Because the headset of itself, to me, is kind of limiting. It's a limiting factor because it cuts you off from the physical world while you're in this digital world. And can you really keep this thing on your head for long periods of time? So you're starting to see things like, you were with me at our last event where we had Richie come out and show you, hey, we can do 2D and we can do 3D and 2D world by showing you air glass and things like that. Where do you think this whole industry is going when it comes to adoption of 3D interaction?
Yeah, okay. So let's preface. I hate the word metaverse because everyone thinks of virtual reality and meta and sticking on a headset and no longer existing in the world that you believe in or live in or currently situated. Okay? That's why I hate the term. Okay? It's been co-opted by a lot of people. It didn't always mean that. It's got a lot of different ideas related to it. But I personally think, just like augmented and virtual reality, right? If I have augmented reality on one side, virtual reality on the other side, I can slide a scale where I lose some of the real world or retain the real world, right? Pokemon Go, holding up my phone, seeing stuff in the real world. Great. Virtual reality, I'm putting on a headset and I'm on Mount Kilimanjaro without ever leaving my house. Great. There's a sliding scale there. Okay. I like to call it the spatial computing spectrum, but other people like to call it the metaverse spectrum, whatever you want. All right. As long as it gets adopted and used in the right way. So that's number one. Number two, the future of interaction, right? And Richie's I love Richie. Me and him have talked nonstop since we met. The future of this is reducing the barrier of entry while also reducing the size of tech. Okay. Virtual reality and augmented reality is well established before Google Glass, right? You could wear a backpack and put on a headset and walk around and you would see the state cap. There's examples of this from like the early 90s. It's how you get that form factor down and get it to a point of adoption that's meaningful for a large market. To your point, the headset's a barrier. It will remain a barrier until everyone has a headset, right? So what I say often is the headset is in its beeper stage. Okay. You had a beeper?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had a beeper. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what a phone bank is, right? You got the beeper, ran over to a phone bank and call someone. Yeah. Now no one knows, like there's going to be people watch this, but like, what's a beeper? What's a phone bank? The whole point is that this tech is big and clunky right now and disconnected. As it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, we're going to see contact lenses that come out. We're going to see this incredible stuff. A contact lens proof of concept was already released into the market and has momentum, but there's a lot of issues and variances and FDA approvals that have to come with that type of technology. But this interaction with 3D content is supported by every industry leader. From Google to Microsoft to Shopify, they all understand that 3D content is critical for the long term of whatever internet 5.0, 6.0, 7.0, metaverse, spatial computing reality, whatever you want to call it, right? 3D volumetric content that's in around is critical. And the other part that's really critical, the artificial intelligence side. Right, and what that actually looks like, because everything that's happening there is going to be two worlds combining to create what literally is the future. And there's very rare events where that happens, right? You get it a little bit on the cloud compute side and the internet. You get it a little bit when you get cell phone service and cell phones, the hardware for it. So there's examples of this that have happened in the past, but we are really at the precipice of these two things wholeheartedly combining into a single piece of technology.
Without question. That's where I see it happening. I don't see the finished product of it yet, but you can see, hey, because all these very smart individuals that are out here, or the ones that have pieces of the technology in certain silos, like, hey, what if we took this and placed it with it? Now you're starting to see this merging with Google and other platforms. Maybe it's Salesforce and other things like, hey, we've got large amounts of data. What if we came together to start to bring together a completely different type of experience that can really bring us to a whole nother area? And you see there's billions and billions of dollars of research dollars that are going into this because it has already been proven that it can work. That's what I was saying earlier. You've already had the experiment. Hey, can our infrastructure support a worldwide adoption of tech in a virtual setting, right? Like you were saying before, video conferencing has been around for 25 years, right? But then it was very expensive to do it earlier on. Very expensive to do. The bandwidth costs so much. Why would you spend so much money? But then got lower and lower and lower and lower, where now it's nothing. This is what's going to happen with 3D interaction, where right now it's very expensive, where it's very clunky. It looks okay, but you're going to start to see high fidelity. If you start saying, wow, you know what? I can't tell the difference between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. I can't tell if that's really Rob or is that a fictitious, picture or rendition of Rob. Talk to us, Rob, about what you're seeing now, especially in where you're working at the Levine Innovation Center, volumetric chambers. Wow. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so wild stuff. So the combination, so what we're talking about is digital twinning. Okay, so like macro term, digital twins. Digital twins is just a virtualized copy of something. Okay, right? If I put an IKEA chair in my office here, right, that's a digital twin of a chair. There's a scale of digital twins. Okay, the level 1 is this looks like and is sized appropriate. Level 3 is there's some level of interaction of data between this thing that's digital and a cloud system, my system, something. So if I had that chair and then that chair knew how many times I sat on it and was tracking it, and I could go to a chairsitter.com that anyone wants to buy now and track how many times I sit in my chair for how long, right? So there's a level of data interaction. And then a level 5 would be my chair scheduling the repair service for the decreased cushion size, okay? Because I've sat on it 10,000 times or for 10,000 hours, and it knows my calendar to schedule the right time slot that I'm not going to be sitting in the chair. So there's a scale when it comes to digital twins. That same scale applies to the digital twins of people, right? We are hitting a very, very close tipping point out of this idea of the uncanny valley, right? Where the human eye can tell if the other person, the other thing is real or fake. Okay, that's what in that uncanny valley in 10 words or less, right? Meta released a set of avatar creation tools that would allow you to see what you look like in VR, and it's a capture of your bust, right? Your head up to your shoulders, etc. Well, they just re-released it like the end of last week using some of the newest tech that came out, and it's darn close to not being able to be tell if it's a human or a virtual digital twin of a person. Okay? Now, that's crazy. The volumetric capture studio, which you hit on at the Levan Center, is doing that digital twinning, but in a dome of 74 cameras it's in a partnership with Sony. So the tech is there to start creating these volumetric or digital twins of people that are in 360 degrees. The technology for large language models and artificial intelligence to create conversations or make content that sounds like a human is there. We're starting to see the two blend together. A good example of this is Meta launching their Tom Brady and Kim Kardashian avatars that are not exactly them, but it'll sound like Tom Brady or sound like him when you ask about sports and that type of stuff. I think his name is like Bruce or something like that, but it's a chatbot. So this tech is starting to come together. And we're going to get to a point in the very near future, I'm talking like less than 18 months, where you're going to have celebrities, YouTube personalities that have a digital twin of themselves that you can go on and talk to and interact with. Right. And it's going to look like them. It's going to sound like them because you can do AI voiceover, and it's going to have the same conversational path and know and understand the content that creator's created in the past. We're there when it comes to that. Right. And that is wild. Flying cars would have been cool, but the fact that there's a digital twin of myself potentially existing in a world that's 24/7 on, that's always available, that's something that no one really would have foreseen. Now, if you look out, right? Like we wouldn't have foreseen that. So looking out, it gets super, super interesting.
It gets very interesting because you start to see how do you conduct business? What you just said, 24 hours a day. Right now, you could probably conduct business as a high-performing individual. Let's just say 8 to 10 hours a day. Boom. If you could do it for 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But however, your digital twin has the capability of doing 365 days every single day for years, conducting business on your behalf. That is exciting that you have enough intelligence that they can actually do things called contracting. Your intellectual property can go out and conduct all kinds of different partnerships and whatever it may be on your behalf. You start looking at what we've already built out. When you start looking at the world of fintech and cryptocurrencies and the blockchain, we've toyed with it. Now, here's the deal. We've had nefarious characters get involved in this space. And I will tell you this happened even 25 years ago. There was nefarious characters that got involved in internet and when e-commerce first came out, and there's all, but the tech work. I want people to understand this. The technology is not the problem. It's the people. So as you
tech is indifferent. Tech is indifferent, right? It doesn't matter. It's how it's used, which is good or bad, right? Would take a very simple example: deepfakes, right? Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. Super easy to create all of those in no time with this tech. If we think about, I was at recently, I get to do talks with a couple 3-letter government agencies from time to time. I get to, hey, here's the different things that are coming up. We kind of share notes and do these presentations to fairly large audience, 50 to 100 internal team members. They quoted that spear phishing attacks, so emails that look right, sound right, have no typos, etc., can be done in 15 minutes now. Okay, so nefarious actors just have an easier set of access, right? Let's say I wanted to scrape your LinkedIn and email the company that you're working with or your own company and wanted to spoof myself, and I can duplicate your voice because you've got podcast content. I create a voice copy of you, and there's so many. I don't even have to send an email anymore. I can just send a voice note that goes to the IT person saying, hey, I'm locked out of my cell phone or my email. Could you just send me the password via email? I'm sending you a voice note. It's obviously Grant because it sounds like me. Send.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's like now. So those types of technologies, as they continue to converge, no piece of technology is nefarious. Like the application of that technology is,
and that's why we need people like yourself. The duplication and the ability to create something that is a fake is always been high. Think about Rembrandt's, right? It's always up, but there's always somebody out there that understands the difference, the authenticity of it all. There'll always be that, and this is where we're at. Imagination. This is where we're getting to, I believe. That our imagination is being very peaked, that the normal, what you call general intelligence of humankind can now actually be raised because of how we're utilizing technology, where before, like myself, I can get college grade, Harvard grade information to me in a matter of blink of an eye. I could never do that before. So now my intelligence can go up much, much higher. I call this now where before we say, yes, I'm in information technology. That's a layer. Information technology to me is very reactive. You get into intelligent technology, which you just talked about. This is intelligent technology. We're moving into this world. How do we interact with intelligent technology, not just information technology, something that actually is interactive at such a fidelity that you have to really question if you're dealing with a human spirit or you're dealing with an intelligent machine. Intelligent technology is where we're going into. And then we start to get into that world, what I call imagination and insights. This is taking us as a human culture into a realm that are we ready for it or not? What's your take on that? Ready to elevate your brand with 5-star impact? Welcome to the Funnel Brand Podcast, your gateway to exceptional personal growth and innovative business strategies. Join me as I unveil the insider strategies of industry pioneers and branding experts. Discover how to supercharge your business development, harness the power of AI for growth, and sculpt a personal brand that stands out in the crowd. Transform ambition into achievement. Explore more at firestarBDM.com for a wealth of resources. Ignite your journey with our Brave Brand Blueprint and begin crafting your standout 5-star future today.
Yeah, so I think humans in and of itself are the predecessor of the next thing, right? Like if you looked at us from a macro perspective, humans build things and those things help us in some way, right? This is the first piece of tech where we could build something and it can help itself. Okay? That in and of itself has some good and has some risks, right? we have to be very concrete and resolute on how it's used and how it's implemented and what guardrails we have in and of itself, right? Because when it becomes intelligent to a point where it can spoof human interactions, things get a little bit weird, right? So ChatGPT already has been proven, right, to log into a website with CAPTCHA settings. Okay, This is a really great story. 10 seconds or less. ChatGPT, a ChatGPT enabled agent, right, which is just like a chatbot, went out and was told, hey, you got to log into this website. The website had CAPTCHA on it, right? You had to like type in the keywords or whatever. It went to taskrabbit.com, hired someone, said that they were a person who had a disability and couldn't type, and TaskRabbit filled out the CAPTCHA for ChatGPT to get into the website. Wow. So like there's ways of getting around these things, right? Like it can do that. So understanding that as we evolve as humans and as we integrate more technology into our day-to-day lives, right? Start cell phone, right? What's cell phone 4.0? What's headset 3.0, right? What's contact lens? What's Neuralink look like? The adoption of this tech has to be thought about from a perspective of access. Okay. So do we only want people who can afford a $1,500 iPhone 15 to have access to ChatGPT 6? Or how do we bring that barrier down so that all people have access to it? So this is a term called democratizing AI, right? But it's really democratizing technology, right? Gaining access and leveraging access from a large group of people so they have and can use this tech. So the barrier entry is reduced. But the evolution of this or how this spins out or what this looks like in the future is moving so fast. If you asked me 6 months ago, I would say, I think it looks like this. But you ask me now, it's completely different. If you asked me last week, it would be completely different. I think the big one that I get really excited about and really is pushing is this multimodal artificial intelligence, where I can give it a photo or a video or text or something, and it's still going to be able to generate a response, right? We saw that with Google Gemini last week, right? Yeah. For all its fanfare, there was some, heavy editing or creative editing when it came to the demo, but that type of instance is here now. So it's like, okay, now we actually need to be in the loop as humans, right? Human in the loop feedback is critical. That's the thumbs up or thumbs down in OpenAI, but that needs to happen regardless of what the tool is.
Yeah, we're getting to that world. And I was at a function, we were talking about ethical AI with a group of lawyers, and a lot of ideas going around. No one has the great answer, but I think we're coming back to where we need to be. Starting to see the government starting to look at these things. And I go back to this movie, which I always liked this movie. You remember iRobot? So iRobot.
Oh, of course, yeah.
What? iRobot. So you had the 3 laws. We got to start thinking about what are our 3 laws? What are the 3 laws about what this kind of intelligence can or cannot do? We have laws for human behavior. Hey, you can't do that. There are consequences. If you have an intelligent machine that has the ability to do things on its own without human oversight, there's got to be some kind of laws. Because if there's not, you can start to see how this can be chaotic. Going back to what I said earlier, the biggest problem with anything in this world is always humans. We have certain humans that operate with a certain code, if you want to call it that are more, I would call ethical, moral, blah, blah, blah. And you have others that don't see it that way. And they do things on a whole, and as far as they're concerned, they're justified in their activities. So you just got to start looking at this. How can we start thinking about this in a way that's ubiquitous, that we have it to where it's democratized, that we have access for a lot of people? However, we've also got some things in there, just like we did with certain social media right now, like, hey, you can't go out there and just be spewing all this stuff without consequences. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so a very timely topic. I think on Friday or Thursday of last week, the European Union launched their first AI initiative, right? That got approved, and it's guardrails to what you're talking about. I think there's 3 different tiers of the guardrails. I'm very tertiary on this. I'm also not legal minded in any way, but it basically says if it falls in this category, we need to be cognitive of these things. Like, right, we shouldn't just have open AI, or not open AI, the company, but artificial intelligence at large, tracking people's religion, faces, etc. Right. And if it falls into this category, like there should be some level of understanding of what impact that is on a worker, right? Or self-employment, etc. So I think that those are critical. The major hangup, though, is that this is one of the first pieces of technology that is out and open sourced, right? Like there's parts of this that you can just grab and run on your own server if you're semi-development minded. And it doesn't have to be your actual physical server like in your basement. It could be a cloud compute server, right? So this type of tech is like, you could put guardrails on it, and you should have the human conversation of how is this being used? But like, not everyone's gonna follow that, right? Like that's the thing. It's like, yeah, but right, and you can say this from everyone, right? This goes from an individual perspective to a nefarious individual to a nefarious organization to a wholesale organization to a country, to the government. Yeah. This is not just a micro. This is a macro thing that you have to think about and understand.
100%. We were talking about our friend Richie, right? And he brought something up, like as you start looking at this tech, and he showed some timelines of human endeavor over, let's just say, the last 1,000 years, talking about things like mathematics. You start talking about things like language. You start talking about communication across different geographies on a worldwide scale. This is what AI has enabled us to do. It's what cloud computing has enabled us to do. And we start thinking through these things. What will this evolve into? And you start looking at nation states, and you start looking at tech states. You start looking at the people, and you start looking at the power. This is always finance and all of this, and how all this plays out. Because remember, there's things going on in China right now that China realizes there's a game in China. Like we play chess. Everybody knows about chess. And, a very sophisticated game, very intelligent to be able to play that game at a high level. They have this game called Go, G-O, right? Play Go. I mean, anybody, if you're the master of Go, I mean, you're like, whoa, you're really on top of things. Well, when the AI beat the master of Go in China, they had a meeting. They had a meeting because they realized, like, this thing is smarter than the smartest human, that we know that can do this type of computation. This is incredible. They're going hard, all the way in on what AI, because it's a game changer. If you can control communication, you can control language, you can control a lot of things that comes out of that. So one end of the spectrum says we can't slow down. We can't really put a bunch of guardrails. We can't to a general public, but we've got to be on top of this, because it can just explode. Look at what happened with just something like TikTok. People are like, TikTok. And then they start saying, well, who's behind it? There was a whole big, so you had the tech and you had the nation state. So I don't know how this all will play out, but it's going to be interesting, don't you think?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I always say, like, this word probably said billions and billions times over, right? I've never been more excited to live in a timeline. Right, like everyone's probably said that, right? When they went from like the horse to the horseless carriage to like the Model T, someone was like, "Oh, this is revolutionary," right? And like the same thing when it came to manufacturing, and the same thing it came from the first versions of tech. But I really am so excited about where we exist now, right? One of the things that we talked about earlier in the conversation was this idea of like splitting the physical and digital world, right? What does a digital nation state look like? Is there a digital Switzerland where I can store what content that I want and they don't care? It's like, how does that impact communication? What tech access point do I have, right? At one point, when am I going to have a personalized assistant, quite literally an assistant, right, that manifests itself in some type of physical digital format, whether it's connected to a little like shoulder mounted drone that just like pops out and then becomes like literally visually in front of me through a projector, and I can talk to, and it like understands, and I can like digitally high five it? Or is that happen when I like touch my Neuralink and I just see it in front of me? Right? Who's going to own that data? Right? Everyone got really excited about VPNs like 3-5 years ago. Oh, VPNs are the best. You know, VPN, you're not using a VPN. VPN conversations are still happening now, but like VPNs were like, you're not using a VPN to buy your crypto? What are you, crazy? The government, who's going to know? They're going to know. Okay. We have to think about that, right? Because I always say like these headsets and head-mounted displays that you put on, they have 3 to 5 times the number of sensors that your phone does. Your phone knows where you are and what you're looking at, et cetera, but like so does your headset, and it knows what your space looks like. Right. so who's going to own that content? So there's a morality or ethical question in there, and there's a question on what that actually looks like for the long-term success of an individual, and then you have to look at how that impacts how you live and how you work.
Man, this is so interesting. Great conversation. This is how we start off the year. You know, we're all in this science fiction experiment, and we can't opt out. We're all on board right
now. You're stuck. Like, honestly, right, I always say this, like, besides becoming a hermit and being a recluse, right, that lives in the middle of the woods where there's no internet access, and you drive to town once a year, and that car is from before 1984, so it has no electronics on it, right, and you don't carry a cell phone, and like you're not really escaping this. No, it's eventually going to be knocking on your door.
No, and I was someone was asking me, and I remember this even a year ago. Someone was asking me, it's like, well, you know, and then we're going to use the term metaverse, right? The metaverse. He's like, well, what do you mean we're all going to be in this? He said, you don't understand. You're already in what we call, quote unquote, the metaverse. He said, what do you mean? He said, how many times are you interacting on your mobile device? What are you interacting on your any kind of digital device? How much time are you actually interacting on your digital devices as opposed to your what you call your physical device? And you start to see that percentage over time over the last 20 years has dramatically increased. You talked about kids, our kids. Wow, you're spending 8 hours in a gaming engine. Do you understand? I want people to understand this. That gaming engine is the actual engine that powers Roblox. It powers a CGI, computer generated image. It actually has that kind of capability within it. Your kids are already interacting with some of the most powerful technology that's been exposed to human beings on a national level. So your mobile compute, your gaming engines, and your laptop or your desktop or your tablet. Guess what? If I had to pick all those, I'd probably pick that gaming engine because it's so powerful.
Yeah, gaming engines are absolutely insane, right? You got 2 big industry leaders. You have Unreal and Unity. I've been working with Unity for 4.5 years, give or take. Fantastic engine. That does not say anything negative about Unreal in any way. These gaming engines are insane. And if you look at that gaming engine iteration 2.0 and 3.0, the reason that we lean on them, right, is because they have the compute power. They understand things in 3 dimensions. Both of them are leaning towards AI integrations, right? Unity has a full large language model integration solution, right, that they're touting, that you can bring your own large language model into it. So they understand. They're not crazy. At another viewpoint, we're thinking about omnipresence. I exist here in the real world, but I also exist in my social media world. I exist in a interaction world between different brands, but then I also can exist in this pure digital world, which could be the metaverse. But that omnipresence that we have now and that commingling of real and digital has really blended together. Some people just see it as like, oh, this is your digital footprint. This is all your data points. But there's going to be a point in time where I quite literally will exist in a digital format. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that can get used. Yeah, you got to get used to this idea of, the Concorde jet and air travel means that you could be in the same continent, right, within a couple hours. This idea of omnipresence means you could quite literally, in a snap of a fingers, be virtually in multiple locations at a single time.
Like well, here we are. We're young. Yeah, I'm a little older, But digital natives, we call them now digital natives. You're Gen Z, they grew up in this world. So what we're talking about is like new and exciting. They're like, well, what are you talking about, man? Like, yeah, I want something more than just my phone, because I've maxed out on my cell phone, right? And I need to max out on my gaming engine, because I'm telling you, that is where it's at. But we get into the creator economy. I'm so happy. There's one thing you cannot do really good. You can't really change the look and feel of your cell phone that much, but you can do this as far as from an experience in your gaming engine. This is going to be explosive, because this is the type of programming development people don't understand. First, before I let you go, help people understand what an algorithm is. They hear the word, but they don't know define algorithm from the raw perspective.
Yeah, I'll use it in the large language model context, like ChatGPT or Google Bard or Claude or Google Gemini, right? All these, we'll use it in a large language context because it's the top of people's minds, right? They may have heard the word LLM, large language model, right? An algorithm for a large language model is to piece together words that sound human. It's a math problem, right? It is just a math problem. It is building the sentence. It's building the structure of that sentence to sound like a human. That's what it is. Short, simple, and to the point. That's how large language models work.
No, and that's great. And see, people don't understand that it is a program, and it's computational. It's mathematics. You start, reverse engineering that and start to understand that you are in a mathematical reality, the physical world. Talking about the physical world, that it can be digitized to a point that it can be simulated in such reality that you can't tell the difference between the two. Think about dreaming. Sometimes you can have a dream that's so real, you can't tell if you're dreaming or you're not dreaming. We're getting into those worlds now. We're starting to see things a little bit more clear, and the clarity in this 3, 4, 5th dimensional world is starting to take us on a journey. Rob, this has been wonderful. Before I let you go, I want you to tell people, and specifically potential clients, why the volumetric center or chamber exists in the Levant Innovation Center, what it does, and why it's there.
Yeah, so all the things that we talked about today are emerging pieces of technology. They all revolve around 3D and artificial intelligence, which is my 2 focus areas, which is great. We didn't talk out of my scope. The volumetric capture studio, which is, if you want to go online, it's www.sflvolcap.com. That'll let you go on the website and see some photos. The reason it exists, though, is that headsets are becoming adopted much faster than people realize. We're at like 100 million headsets that are in the market. Right? Apple's releasing their headset, which is another direct-to-consumer device. Right? Augmented reality experiences powered by phone or virtual reality experiences powered by a headset are more and more popular. They require video 3.0, which is video in the round. Right? We got to be able to see it from 360 degrees, because that's what happens when you put on a headset. So the volumetric capture studio is one of 2 in North America. We're partnered with Sony. It's one of the only publicly available ones in the US. You can actually go there and create a digital twin of yourself or record content that's deployable across all these devices, from your cell phone all the way up to the headset, as well as support the process. So the reason it exists is because the Levant Center of Innovation understands the future. It understands that we're at the precipice of this type of content, and content generation is going to change. Right? TikTok videos are going to need to be done in 360 degrees because these headsets and applications are going to come out for mass adoption. So that's why it exists. It's a leverage point for organizations, large and small, to go and rent and use to create content that's deployable in multiple facets. So that's really what it's about, for sure. And that creation of digital twins of people, which is super cool.
I saw the digital creation of yourself, and I was blown away. I'm like, I see Rob. I was like, that's Rob. He said, that's his digital twin. He's making his head big, he's making it small, he's making it do all these different things. I'm like, this is incredible, because again, the fidelity of it, the realism of it is incredible. And right now, it costs a certain amount to go ahead and create the capture. You're going to see that cost continuously go down over time as adoption gets in. But I would tell people, don't wait. This is a game changer. If you want to say, how do I create disruption in my industry? How do I get above where my competition is right now and create content? Because we start to understand branding. We understand that you've got to be a differentiator. How can I create an experience that's beyond where everyone else is? You need to contact Rob. He can get you there. Rob, what's the best way to contact you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. Just send me a DM, right? I access it all the time. I have my website too, robertpetrosino.com. If you want to chat on there, feel free to fill out a contact form. So when it comes to content generation and volumetric, when it comes to artificial intelligence and direct implementations, when it comes to just understanding what 24 brings and 25 brings and 26 brings, right? Happy to chat about that stuff. My goal, like I said from the beginning, right? If I can help you feel comfortable with technology, specifically emerging tech, you're going to be more likely to adopt it. So that's what I'm here for, and happy to chat with anyone that reaches out.
This has been wonderful, wonderful. You can see me at the Levon Center as well. I'm going over there. I'm working now with the cyber range, trying to get people to go. We've got to understand our cyber responsibilities, because this new tech, we want to be able to utilize it to its fullest. And that's what's important. So I encourage anyone in your network and all over to contact me at 5-star. That's number 5-star BDM. That's B for brand, D for development, Infomasters.com. This has been wonderful. Thank you for being on the show, Rob.
My pleasure. I can't wait to come back.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on the Follow Brand Podcast. Big thanks to Full Effect Productions for their incredible support on each and every episode. Now the journey continues on our YouTube channel, Follow Brand TV series. Dive into exclusive interviews, extended content, and bonus insights that will fuel your success. Subscribe now and be a part of our growing community, sharing and learning together. Explore, engage, and elevate at Follow Brand TV series on YouTube. Stay connected, stay inspired. Till next time, we will continue building a 5-star brand that you can follow.